This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
The word recession, it's coming up more and more often.
Boo.
Boo. Even though many economists, including yourself, have said for years we actually need a recession because it's what will help get prices on things down. It's a double-edged sword, this recession conversation. But what you and I both know for sure, Jon, is that a recession should not affect the well-being of somebody in their retirement. And that is where you, sir, come into play, helping us figure out a plan to make it as such. Between the conversation of Trump's tariffs and the market volatility, it feels like every single day is a different headline that contradicts the one we got maybe an hour before. And Fox Business actually asked JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon if he's expecting a recession as a result. And here's what he said.
I think probably that's a likely outcome. Markets aren't always right, but sometimes they are right. And I think this time they are right because they're just pricing in uncertainty at the macro level and uncertainty at the micro level, the actual company level. And then how it affects consumer sentiment, it's hard to tell. Consumers still have jobs. Wages are going up at the low end, which I think is a good thing. But if companies start cutting back, the consumer sentiment changes and business sentiment changes. No one's wishing for that, but hopefully if there is one, it'll be short.
Hopefully it will be short. Hopefully it won't last long.
Yeah.
But when somebody comes to you, particularly folks that you work with that are close to or in retirement and they're worried about recession, what do you say to them?
I mean, the one thing that a lot of folks do is they worry because of speculation. That's why we see the headlines change so much. Everything is just speculative. No one really knows what's going to happen. And that's usually when markets behave the worst, is when no one really can put a finger on what they think the next phase is going to be, right? So Jamie Dimon in the beginning, before the election, was kind of an ardent Trump supporter. He's always been a pretty good, he's always done pretty well staying neutral, but I think he thought that the president was going to have a lot of really pro-business initiatives, right? Mm-hmm. And as the tariffs have gone on, he's become a little bit more vocal, saying, let's just be understanding of this. So that doesn't mean that they won't have a good outcome, these tariffs, but come on, Mr. President, let's help us out here. None of us know. Should we be hiring people? Should we be firing people?
Yeah.
Should we be relocating people? Should we bring in some of these call centers from other countries because we can't really afford to do some of those things? Yeah. These are all issues, right? And Jamie Dimon, one of the things he just said, he mentioned that all the interconnectivity of things, right? So the individual investor is thinking one thing. So they're making decisions.
Yep.
Businesses are looking at, wow, is the individual investor or the consumer, are they going to be buying our stuff? Do we need to stock the shelves or should we just hold on to some cash? Mm-hmm. What should we do right now? And then that consistent cycle of not knowing creates all the speculation, and the markets don't like it. When you look at the volatility indexes, which is the measurement of how scared we are as a people, it's doubled. It's literally doubled in the last 2 months. It's gone from roughly a 12 to around a 25, so more than doubled. When you look at volatility, that means that people are twice as concerned as they were a couple years ago. Okay. I'm sorry, a couple months ago, a couple months ago. So that's a big deal, and it's causing the market to get a little bit of indigestion because it doesn't know what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing that we all have to understand is how do we unpack this information? Yep. Well, if we have a 2 to 3 year plan to retire, or heck, even 3 to 5 years, or we're already retired, most of the things that are happening right now should not affect your plan if it was done right. Seriously, it really shouldn't have.
Important summarizing statement, if it was done right.
And being done right means you're not just focusing on what chunk of money do you have. That really is not it. And your diversified asset classes. Everyone says they have that.
Yeah.
But it's when, when the tide goes out, everyone can see who's been swimming naked, right? So when I'm talking about a real plan for retirement, it has to have 5 steps, 5 pillars you have to have. Number one, you have to understand how much protection do you have? Mm-hmm. What assets do you have that can't go down? What protections are in place? It doesn't mean it's a product mix. It just means how much safety nets are in there. Mm-hmm. Do you have a stop loss? Do you have derivatives? Do you have options that make money if things go down? Do you have income coming in from areas that you don't have to worry about, because no matter what happens to the market, protection is number one, and that leads to income. Mm-hmm. So if you know how much protection you have, the more protection you have on your money, the more income you can typically take.
Okay.
Think about it, guys. That's not rocket science at all. Think about it. If you get $1 million and it's all at risk, It could potentially all go up and down because you owned the big magnificent seven. You owned Microsoft and Apple and Nvidia and Amazon and Google, and all of a sudden they're down 25 or 30%. Can you take the same amount of income from that portfolio that's down 25%? Most gurus would say, well, you shouldn't. If you do, you could potentially run out of money, so be very careful. But if you know, hey, you got some of those things in your portfolio, but not all of it. You got a lot of stuff that's safe, a lot of stuff that, you're tied to treasury rates, or you're getting really good bank rates on your CDs, or you have an annuity that's a guaranteed income stream, or you have a pension and you have Airbnbs and things like that. If you have your income and you know your protection, guys, those are the two biggest pieces of a retirement portfolio. When you throw in the third one, which is tax design, how do you keep more of that money that you can spend and not let the government spend it? But it's your money, and you use true, real mitigation techniques to keep more of your money and to keep it illegally away from the government. That's number three. Those are the big three, right? Okay. So if you just do those big three things, you're going to be in a much better position, because over the course of retirement, we will probably experience, all of us, somewhere between 3 to 6 different recessions over the course of that 20 to 30 years that we're going to spend in retirement. And if you retire earlier, guess what? There's another opportunity for you to have another recession along the way. So a quality plan based on protection, income, tax design, wealth transfer, and understanding where healthcare costs are going to be made up. Those all 5 things. If you do that correctly, it won't matter if you retire today, 6 months from now, or 2 years from now, because the markets are always going to go up and the markets are always going to go down. And hopefully you just don't happen to retire at the absolute worst possible time. But even if you did, you should still know that your income is sustainable, if not forever, at least for a very comfortable period, like 15 to 20 years, right? And if we do that, guys, we can live to fight another day, which is the whole point. So all the recession fears typically means that someone does not have a well thought out plan, or they just don't know it. It's possible they do have one, but they're not aware of it. Their guy hasn't told them that, or their gal hasn't done it, or in all of their math and pulling out their abacus and their Excel files, they didn't realize, wow, I kind of did all this right. I just wasn't aware of what I was doing at the time.
RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to start the conversation if you are wondering about your plan, if you're wondering about these 5 areas that Jon has pointed out. We are here to help you go through all of these areas within your plan, within your savings and investments, to ensure that you are properly allocated for these different things that you need to have covered for your retirement. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there. All of that said, Jon, does the same ideology apply then to somebody who's now maybe thinking, well, should I just delay my retirement with all this recession talk? Maybe now is not a good time for me to leave the job. Maybe I should, work to save. You do talk about if there is a loss of funds in our investments in the first few years of retirement, we're 6 times more likely to run out of money. So maybe people are thinking along those lines. It's like, now it's just not a good time. Let me just wait it out a few more years. What do you say to those people?
So there is a lot of statistics behind that, right? So Fidelity did a study, and if you lose money in the first couple years of retirement, 15% or more, you're 6 times more likely to run out of money over the course of retirement. I mean, that's been established and published. Yeah. So those are statistical fact. Now, the question, though, is that have you saved well enough, depending on how you want to live, where you could retire no matter what? Okay. Does it make any difference? Yeah. So you may start off not doing that Mediterranean cruise that very first year that your portfolio is down 8 or 9%. Mm-hmm. You may want to just defer that for another year. Does it mean that you work a little bit longer? It depends on the quality of life, right? Okay. My whole thing is it's never the wrong time to make a great decision. If it's time for you to step out, or you're looking at taking a buyout option, or get right-sized or downsized, whatever they call it these days, if that is happening, that should not necessarily change because we may be in a recessionistic position. Okay. At least most of the statistics I see, again, if you know where you're protected and where your income's coming from, you can live to fight another day. You'll be perfectly fine. So when someone says, well, Jon, I would just feel a lot better if I didn't retire this June, maybe I'll push it out a year, see what happens. That is a total choice based on what gives you comfort. And I do believe that people should make choices that they can stand behind because they give them comfort. Yep. But mathematically, you may not have to do that. You just may shift a little bit when you spend the money. One of the things that I always talk to people about is how they can front load the retirement, which means one of two things. How can you either retire a little bit earlier, but still at the same standard that you want to live at, Or how can you do all those bucket list items earlier in retirement?
Yeah.
Why? Because you're younger and healthier probably than the rest of your time that you're going to be retired. You're the youngest and the healthiest usually when you first retire. I want people to front load that retirement. I want them to start thinking about that Mediterranean cruise or that Viking River cruise or taking the kids down to space camp or Disney or whatever it is. Maybe looking at that lake house. Maybe you don't buy it. Maybe you rent it for a month during the summer for a few years just to decide even if you like it that much.
Yeah.
But those are things that I want people to do when they're younger and healthier and able to enjoy it. So those are things that we still want to plan for. Maybe some of those things, the things we kick. But should someone change completely their idea of retirement just because of something going on in the markets that we can't control? Usually, in my opinion, no.
Got it. But always, to your point, making decisions for yourself, for your family that you can stand behind, that you are confident and comfortable with.
Absolutely.
This is the goal of every plan that they build at J. Hagan Capital and that are ready to discuss with you as well. RetirementSolutionsShow.com is our website. If you have questions about all of this looming recession talk, nobody's got a crystal ball, so we don't know what will happen. But what Jon and his team can help you understand is where you are right now. Do you have a plan that implements the 5 pillars he was discussing? Can you retire now? You don't have to delay. Or should you work another year or two? Let's get to work crunching these numbers for you and your plan and your goals. This is everything that goes into the planning process at J. Hagan Capital that we can do with and for you as well. Again, it's RetirementSolutionsShow.com or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes. Let's help you get to work.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting RetirementSolutionRadio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.